Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are going to break down the absolute building blocks of every single sentence you read and write, clauses and phrases. And trust me, getting a handle on these is the real key to crafting sentences that are clear, powerful, and grammatically on point. All right, let's jump right in.
So here's the game plan for today. First, we're going to crack the code on the main difference between a phrase and a clause. Then, we'll dive into all the different kinds of each. After that, we'll get into some really practical rules and tips that, honestly, are going to be a lifesaver for your exams. We're going to go from the basics all the way to putting it into practice.
Okay, first things first. We have to start with the absolute foundation, figuring out the core difference between a phrase and a clause. That's step one. I promise, once you nail this, everything else is going to click right into place.
So what in the world is a phrase? Well, think of it like a little team of words that all work together. It's the group that acts as a single part of speech, but, and this is the big one, it doesn't have both a subject and its verb. It's just a piece of an idea, a fragment that adds some flavor, but can't really stand up on its own.
All right, now let's talk about its bigger, more powerful sibling, the clause. A clause is also a group of words, but it's got way more going on. Why? Because it has both a subject, that's the who or what, and a predicate. And the predicate? That's just the fancy word for the part with the verb that tells us what the subject is up to. This little formula right here, it's everything. Just remember, clause equals subject plus verb. That's the secret sauce.
So, if you remember one thing from this section, make it this. The ultimate test to tell them apart is to hunt for that subject-verb team. If you find them both, you're looking at a clause. If one of them is missing, it's a phrase. Simple as that. A phrase is a piece of the puzzle. A clause can be the whole picture.
Awesome. So now that we've got that difference down, let's start building. We're going to check out the different types of phrases. You can think of these as all the different kinds of specialized bricks we use to build our sentences, and each one has a very specific job to do. First on our list is the noun phrase. This is pretty straightforward. It's a noun plus any words that describe it. So instead of just saying car, you might say the shiny new sports car. The whole chunk of words just acts like one single thing, one noun.
And you can see here, they come in all shapes and sizes. A noun phrase can be short and sweet, like the tall mountain, or it can be super long and detailed, like the 45-year-old man with brown hair. But no matter how long it is, that whole highlighted section is just doing the job of one noun.
Okay, next up, the verb phrase. This is the action hub of the sentence. It's the main verb plus any little helping verbs that tag along, like is, has, or will. Basically, this phrase is all about what the subject is actually doing or being.
Let's check out these examples. Am running shows us an action that's happening right now. Have completed work on the building describes a whole action, including what they completed. And plays the trombone is a simple action plus its object. All of these are verb phrases, telling us the story of the subject.
Now, an adjective phrase does pretty much what you'd guess from the name. It acts like one giant adjective. The whole group of words gets together to describe a noun or pronoun. A really easy way to spot one is to ask yourself, do these words answer what kind or which one about something? If so, you've probably found an adjective phrase.
See how these phrases are all answering questions about a noun? What kind of voice? A very beautiful one. How is the singer? Wonderfully talented. You'll notice that words like very or wonderfully often team up with an adjective to form these phrases.
And in that same vein, we've got the adverb phrase. This is a group of words doing the job of a single adverb. It gives us more information, more context about an action. So the question you're asking here is, does it tell me how, when, where, or why something is happening? So you can see how these add all that extra detail. How did she run? Quickly, to the bus. Why did the man bring his gear? To catch fish in the river. And where did we hang the painting? On the wall. They're all about adding that crucial context.
Finally, we've got one of the most common types you'll ever see, the prepositional phrase. It always kicks off with a preposition. You know, words like in, on, at, with, and ends with a noun or pronoun. And what's really cool about these is that they're kind of like chameleons. They can act like an adjective or an adverb, depending on what the sentence needs.
Let's really look at this dual purpose thing in action. In that first sentence, in the driveway, is telling us which car we're talking about, so it's acting like an adjective.
But in the second one, under the table, tells us where the backpack is, so it's an adverb. And in the last one, with white whiskers, describes the cat, adjective again. It's all about what job it's doing in the sentence. All right, so we've got our bricks, the phrases all laid out. Now let's get back to the bigger picture, the clauses. If phrases are the bricks, clauses are like the actual rooms that make up the house of our sentence. And some of these rooms are so complete, they could be their own little cabins. First up is the big one, the independent clause. This one is strong. It's self-sufficient. It's got the subject, it's got the verb, and it makes a complete thought all by itself. It doesn't need any help from anyone. It can stand alone as a perfectly good sentence. And you can't get much clearer than these examples, right? The concert ended. That makes sense. She wrote a novel. Also a complete thought. The wind blows. Yep, got it. Each one has a subject, a verb, and you could stick a period on the end and call it a day.
And then we have the dependent clause. Now this one is a little bit needy. See, it also has a subject and a verb, but it starts with a special kind of word, like because, when, if, or who, that makes it feel incomplete. It's like having a beautiful bedroom, but it's just sitting in the middle of a field. It needs to be attached to the main house, the independent clause, to actually work.
Do you feel how these just leave you hanging? If I said to you, because the concert ended, you'd be waiting for me to finish? What happened because it ended? Or, although she wrote a novel. Yeah, what about it? They have the subject and verb, but that little starting word makes them totally dependent on more information.
Okay, so we know a dependent clause can't survive on its own. But what's really cool is how they function inside a bigger sentence. Just like phrases, they can do different jobs. They can pretend to be nouns, adjectives, or adverbs. Let's take a closer look.
So, a noun clause is basically a whole group of words that gets together and decides to just act like a single noun. It can be the subject of a sentence or the object. A big clue for these is they often start with words like what, that, who, or why. Let's break these down. In that first sentence, the entire chunk of words, what she said, is the subject that did the surprising. In the second one, why he was upset, is the thing that I understood. It's the object. And in the last one, that we are lost, is just another way of saying the truth. The whole clause is acting as a single noun every time. Next up, we have the adjective clause. You'll also hear this called a relative clause. They're the exact same thing. This is a dependent clause that acts like one giant adjective, giving us more info about a noun. And it almost always starts with a giveaway word like who, which, or that. You can really see how these clauses are just adding that extra layer of description. Which book? The one that I borrowed. Which scientist? The one who made the discovery. And which town? The one where I was born. They make our sentences so much more specific. And our third type is the adverb clause. This one, you guessed it, does the job of an adverb. It modifies the main action of the sentence, telling us things like when it happened, why it happened, how it happened, or under what condition. It's all about the context. Look at how each one is answering a specific question for us. When should you call me? When you arrive home. Why did she succeed? Because she worked hard. Under what condition will the game be canceled? If it rains tomorrow. It's all about providing those important details. All right, enough theory. Let's get to the practical stuff, the stuff that's actually going to help you improve your writing and ace those exams. Let's talk rules and tips.
So imagine you've got a phrase and you need to turn it into a full-blown clause. It's actually a super simple three-step deal. First, grab the main idea, like the red car. Step 2, make the car your subject. And step 3, just give it a verb, like is red. And boom, you have a complete clause. The car is red.
And guess what? It works in reverse, too. This is a great trick for making your writing punchier. Take the clause, the car is red. Just chop out the subject and the verb. Goodbye the car and is. Then move what's left, red, in front of the noun. Now you have the snappy phrase, the red car. We are in the home stretch. This last section is all about pulling everything together. We're going to lock in what we've learned, and I'll give you a few final tips to keep in mind, especially for when you're under pressure in an exam. Okay, this chart right here, this is your new best friend for revision. It puts everything we've talked about side by side. Does it have a subject and a verb? No for a phrase? Yes for a clause. Can it be a sentence? Only if it's an independent clause. This is a perfect summary.
I'd even recommend taking a screenshot of this for your notes.
All right, listen up, because these are the tips you absolutely need for your exams. Rule number 1, every single sentence must have at least one independent clause, period. The number one mistake teachers see over and over is the sentence fragment, which is just a lonely dependent clause, like because it was raining. So always, always double-check your work for that subject-verb pair. And a pro tip? Mix it up. Using different phrases and clauses makes your writing way more engaging.
So, there you have it. We've gone over the blueprint of sentences, and we've looked at all the essential building blocks, the different phrases and clauses you can use. You've got the tools now to build anything from a simple statement to a really complex, interesting idea. So now, the question really is for you. Now that you've got this knowledge, what will you build with it?